Dan said, listen, if he's going to be kind enough to want to play, then Andrew will play.
That's fair.
And he says, let's play, we'll play. But it's not us, it's nothing to do with them.
New Prince Andrew.
Yeah.
Is that a deal?
Yeah.
There are stories that stay hidden, protected by an unspoken agreement, but then there are those that remain buried because the wrong person hasn't opened their mouth yet. And what you're about to hear, it's not one of those soft, fluffy stories. Oh no, this is a bombshell, a tale that's been kept silent for years. Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, has kept quiet about it for so long. She never laughed it off, never gave it a swift denial, never publicly shot it down. And let me tell you, inside royal circles, when someone stays silent, it's never accidental. This story, it involves a yacht, a royal prince, and a newly titled duchess. 3 days spent far from prying eyes, and the kind of consequence that could have rewritten history had it not been for a pregnancy, a sharp cutoff, and a future that was forever changed. Sarah Ferguson knew exactly how Prince Andrew operated. She understood the environments he liked to be in and had seen firsthand how ambition plays out. So when Meghan Markle stepped into the royal spotlight years later, this wasn't a new story for Fergie. No, it was an old one, carefully sealed and conveniently forgotten. Until now, because when the person who's been holding your secrets finally decides to stop playing protector, that's when the past refuses to stay buried. And let me tell you, this is exactly when the real story starts to unravel. When Sarah Ferguson stops defending someone, people start listening. Now, Sarah Ferguson didn't need any lessons on yacht culture. She had been around it long before Meghan Markle ever entered the picture. But here's where things take a darker turn. Years later, Meghan would tell a story about first meeting Prince Andrew. She claimed she didn't recognize him, that she thought he was just some random guy carrying the Queen's handbag. To the public, it was a funny little anecdote. Nothing to take too seriously, right? But to Sarah Ferguson, it was a joke that didn't land. Prince Andrew isn't some invisible figure. He's not someone you just miss, especially not when you've been so deeply embedded in the circles Meghan had already been moving through. Fergie knew exactly what was going on here. This distancing language, it's not about innocence. No, it's about erasing history. It's about making sure that whatever happened before the public timeline gets wiped clean and rewritten into something more convenient. And according to an insider, Meghan and Andrew's connection wasn't some abstract thing. It was real, physical, and it took place aboard a private yacht off the coast of Nice in February of 2002. Andrew, he was the VIP guest. Meghan, she was part of the social group on board. It wasn't a massive ship with hundreds of people milling about. No, everyone knew each other's name. It wasn't a sea of anonymous faces. When Andrew boarded, everything changed. Meghan quickly found herself seated right beside him, and before long, they disappeared below deck together, not for a few minutes, not for a casual chat, but for days. Meals delivered privately. The rest of the group kept at a distance. When they came back up for air, everyone could see it. The dynamic had shifted. People noticed, and the story stayed with them even long after the yacht had returned to shore and the guests had gone their separate ways. For Fergie, this wasn't shocking news. It was just confirmation of what she had long known but never said aloud. Stories like this don't resurface right when they happen. No, they come back when the people who've been protecting them decide it's time to let go. And what matters most in these situations isn't the encounter itself. It's what happens next. After that yacht trip, the connection between Meghan and Andrew didn't just fizzle out. No, the communication continued. They kept in touch. They expected more from each other. But when Andrew returned to London, he did what he's famous for. He disengaged. Meghan's calls went unanswered. Her messages ignored. Eventually, his staff was instructed to block her completely. And that was that. Whatever had happened was officially in the past. Closed, gone, never to be spoken of again. But here's the thing. This story doesn't end there. According to a source who knows the inner workings of the royal family, Meghan didn't just let it go. She didn't walk away. No, she kept reaching out, time and time again. She wanted to tell Andrew something that couldn't wait. And whatever it was, it had to be big. So big that it makes sense why she wouldn't let the silence stand. The claim? Meghan thought she was pregnant. If that's true, if Meghan really was carrying Andrew's child, then the consequences would have been huge, both personally and institutionally. A child tied to Prince Andrew, but outside of marriage and completely outside the royal family's control. That would have been catastrophic for the monarchy. And yet Andrew didn't engage. He refused to respond, completely cut off contact. For Meghan, someone who had been accustomed to royal access, this kind of cold rejection, it would have felt like a slap in the face. And if the story is true, this is where it gets darker. Meghan's pregnancy was reportedly terminated. No child, no scandal. And after that, all communication stopped completely. Now that's a tough pill to swallow. Not just because of the alleged pregnancy, but because it explains why communication between them ended so suddenly. It gives us a glimpse into the bitterness that could have followed. If even a fraction of this story is true, then it explains decades of silence from both Meghan and Andrew. There would have been every reason for both of them to bury it. Meghan had no choice but to move on. The royal family had no choice but to bury it completely. completely. There were no photographs, no official documents, no witnesses willing to come forward, only memories. But time passed, life went on. Meghan re-entered the royal family's orbit, but now, this forgotten chapter had suddenly become dangerous. Because when you're caught in the royal family's crosshairs, things aren't about loyalty, they're about survival. Meghan might have thought she had the system figured out. She might have thought she could rewrite her own narrative whenever it suited her. But when Fergie stopped playing along, the silence stopped holding. And that's when the past resurfaced. But why now? Why is Fergie speaking up? It's simple. Meghan's usefulness to the royal family has waned. She's no longer a protected figure in the system. Prince William? He's fine. His story is secure. No secrets to hide there. But King Charles? He knows exactly how fast things can unravel. And when things unravel in the royal family, certain truths must be sacrificed to save the bigger picture. Meghan? She's the pressure valve. The one truth they can expose to keep the rest of the system intact. Sarah Ferguson understands this perfectly. If someone has to be exposed, Meghan's story is the easiest one to tell. This isn't about opposition. It's about mutual understanding. Fergie knows the royal game. She played it for years. She stayed close, stayed quiet, stayed in the good graces of the institution, and in return, she was protected. Meghan played a similar game. She climbed up, made the right alliances, then cut ties with anyone who didn't serve her anymore. The difference? Timing. Fergie learned the hard way, the lessons of scandal, survival, and loss. Meghan, on the other hand, assumed the rules would always bend in her favor. But that assumption, that's where everything broke down. Because when two people built on the same instincts fall apart, it's not just a fallout, it's a full-blown explosion. Meghan's decision to distance herself, it wasn't just a break from an ally, it was the moment she activated a witness. Someone who knew exactly how the royal pieces fit together. And that's when Sarah Ferguson's role becomes undeniable. Fergie didn't need proof. She didn't need photographs or sworn testimonies. She knew Prince Andrew's patterns. She understood how stories were managed. She understood how Meghan's ambition worked because she'd seen it before. That's why this secret remained protected for so long. Everyone stayed silent because everyone had something to gain from it. But now, the balance has shifted. Fergie no longer enjoys the same protection. Meghan no longer holds the same favor. Andrew, he's always had others carry the weight of his past. But when the one person who knows how all the pieces fit together stops protecting the silence, that's when the past doesn't just stay in the shadows. It steps forward, demanding to be heard. And once the truth comes out, the game changes. The royal family doesn't fear rumors or denials anymore. What they fear is the truth about who knew what and who decided to stay silent. That's the kind of truth they can't hide.